All right, y'all. After some technical difficulties, we are up. Audio's running. We are back at it. This is the Humble Hustle Project podcast, and I'm joined today by audio. My brother Devin Jackson. Like I told you last time, he will be joining us continually for each episode. To both, chime in, give his 2 cents, and really just help build this community that the Humble Hustle Project is looking to create. So, a lot's happened this last week, and one of the things I wanted to guide y'all into is that we want to start talking about the things that are happening in the world, but relate them to topics that we want to discuss on the podcast and break them down on how we find parallels, blueprints, and how we can find value between the two in unique different takes. So today we want to talk about comfort zones. We feel like some of the things that, at least me personally, is that we can fall into comfort zones very easily and very quickly. I don't know about you, Devin, but if you want it, when you hear comfort zone, where does your head immediately go, man?
My bed. I just want to sit in my bed all day, bro. If I'm being honest with you, that's
Mm,
my comfort zone. Like just relaxing, right? But like my comfort zone is just it's it's uh it's doing the things that make me happy, which is like,
mm,
and I said bed, like it's kind of like a joke to it, but the reality is like, I just want to relax all the time. Like that is like my comfort zone,
mm.
and like what about that? Like the idea of a comfort is just a place where you find that you relax. Like you're just not thinking about it. Like I don't know. Like most guys like play video games. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's like like you and me. Like we can just sit down and play Mortal Kombat. That can be like our comfort zone. Um, and that's how I identify it. I mean, what do you think? What do you think of when
yeah,
you think of
man.
that?
So when I think comfort zone, man, I think there's a degree of complacency that I associate with the comfort zone. I feel like a lot of times, and I watch it in my peers. We go to high school with these people, we go to college with these people, we go to work with these people, and there's like a level of complacency that I start to see, and there's nothing wrong with it. They're cozy, they're cush, they got enough money to make their lives, what they want them to be. I guess sometimes for me, it blocks potentially some of the things we could create as a unit or as a team, or if you are somebody that doesn't have the deciding power, and the somebody that you report to is in kind of that comfort zone, maybe in that complacent place. um that's something that
So you're
jumps
talking
right to
like
me.
so you're thinking more about like people who are in this place of like constant comfort, right? This place of mm, like giving into that comfort zone more often than not, right? That is that what you mean?
Yeah, and I guess it's more like maybe it's a value thing. I think maybe it's like
Hmm.
a maybe it stems from me wanting to continually improve myself to some extent in all different facets of my life. Um, and I see that kind of in the workplace, or in the peer group place, kind of butt heads with others, where I'm like, man, like we hang out, but like now I don't know if I'm gonna be hanging out with you too much more, because I'm going this way, and you're kind of just good where you're at, which ain't again, it's not a
Yeah.
bad thing. But that when we talk about comfort zone, this is where my mind like immediately jumps to, and I guess when I think comfort, I think complacency, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
I think so. It's weird, man. Like I think it's an interesting concept. Like, and I'm saying that because I think of like a comfort. One aspect can comfort zone, right? And the other aspect could be just kind of like where I'm at, or like a stand. You know what I mean? But when I'm thinking about it in terms of like my goals and
mm-hmm.
attaching it to my hustle, the comfort zone is a definitely has like that same connotation as you. It's like negative, right? I think of the place I'd be. So earlier when I said relaxing and doing absolutely nothing, like that's the place that I'd rather be, and
Mm,
in terms of like my comfort zone. But it's the when I'm connecting it to my goals, I'll never find myself. It's the place I'll never allow myself, because I know it's the place that I find comfortable. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that delayed gratification type
yeah,
thing. That's what I think about it.
yeah. You're touching on like how there's a constant at odds between being comfortable, being, com- what again, I always jump to complacency, but I don't know if that's right, but it being always at all odds, or it being always at odds with your own goals and ambitions. And when you reference comfort zone, it sounds like it's something that's like a positive thing. It's your rest place. It's the place that you go to kind of reset. It sounds like. I guess
Mm-hmm.
maybe the the problem sometimes that we have when we go to those, reset places is that we just kind of, or relaxation places, we get stuck there. I know for even when we just
Yeah.
went on this recent trip, man, it took me like 3 days to really get back in the groove of workflow after our trip, and I was just like,
Facts.
yo, like what's going on, man? Here, I wasn't waking up for my workouts. I wasn't getting up on the time I needed to get up, and or that I usually am in my routine. And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, even taking 3 days off like that, it got cozy.
Oh man, it got super comfortable. Like, okay, so even like in my last relationship, really good example, right?
Hmm.
I was in this comfort zone. You remember when I saw you? The interesting thing was like I was in a place of like comfort. I had gained like 40, 50 pounds. I
Mm,
had put myself in this place where I was just super relaxed, and I was in a constant state of indulging in the things
hmm.
that were not conducive to my growth,
Mm,
right? And it was so weird because being in that place and then taking steps to get out of it was just like what you were talking about when we went on the trip. Because when I got back, it was the same thing. I mean, I'm
yeah.
still struggling with it now. It was just like, man, like the amount of time it took to jump back into those habits that I was doing prior, of how comfortable we
Hmm.
got, and just how yeah, man.
So, so this leads me to think about two different distinct um, paths when it comes to the comfort zone, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them being is like we just referenced an experience where we had maybe a tough time getting back in the groove of our day to day. We took a break,
Mm-hmm.
had a vacation. Ha, even a relationship or things of that nature where you're trying to find your sense, get back to your sense of normalcy where you get your routine, you're on track. I want to talk a little bit more about how one jumps out of the comfort zone of their current lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
to something completely different. Okay.
That's serious right there. That's a very serious
Um,
topic, bro. Uh,
well, and so this is where you hear the stories of, such and such changed career paths at 40 years old to an entirely different field, or you see people
mhm.
or that we see on influences or news that are doing different things. A great example, literally just this past weekend, a YouTuber, Jake Paul. For those of you that keep up, he's a YouTube influencer. Um, do I mess with his message? Not really, but actually not at all. but um, there's something to learn from the way he's moving, man. Like he stepped into boxing, which arguably I would consider one of the most lonely disciplined sports there is. I mean, we look at
So
dudes
it's
like
the
Tyson and
mhm,
Ali and how revered they are as not only athletes but as like world figures. Um,
mhm.
so
Definitely.
yeah,
No, man.
what were we gonna say?
Oh no, I was gonna definitely. It's like one of the most vicious combat sports there are. You know what I'm saying? It takes a lot. And seeing Jake Paul pivot into that, bro, that's kind of crazy, right?
And
I,
winning,
I
and winning.
right.
That was
And
crazy.
bro, okay, when he fought Nate Robinson,
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I was like, yo, Nate Robinson is an elite athlete. You're talking about an NBA player,
Yeah.
somebody who can dunk at his height, not just like regular dunk. Like you're talking about somebody who has power, like that's just muscle, like completely different from just your average Joe or just somebody who loves to compete or plays in a certain league. But this individual is on a different level. So when I
Yeah.
him fight against Jake Paul or the Paul brothers, I don't know which one it was, but it was I was like, oh man, there's like no about it. Like we all know who's gonna win this. Like it's Nate Rose, like an actual professional athlete.
Yeah,
No,
Ben
no shade
Askren,
on Nate.
man,
You know what I'm saying?
former UFC fighter, champion. I think he had a belt at some point. You know, he was full fledged, bro. And granted, I don't want to talk out too much outside of our lanes, but bro, you see him with in the ring, and he's the dude Masvidal knocked out with his knee, bro.
Oh, I know. I remember that. Believe me, I remember it vividly. I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah,
But no, I
so
hear what you're saying. Like him going up against him
and
fighting.
and that's what you wouldn't expect, right? So again,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about like the Jake Paul Ben Askren fight. Obviously, that's it. He knocked out a former MMA elite, what I would consider. Again, I want to move it back though to comfort zones. You could make the argument that the whole point of being a YouTuber is challenging your comfort zone. So maybe that's a skill YouTubers innately have about jumping into new spaces. But I think there's something to look at there. There's something to see that you're willing to take the risk, regardless of low key how much hate that kid gets. I can't. I don't think I had one person in my personal circle that wanted that kid to win. You know?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. And no, but I'll tell you what, man. It takes somebody with like real discipline or just like heart, to just kind of like pivot from what they're doing into something completely different, right? A good example, like yeah, Jake Paul, just like we were speaking about, somebody who like was never like I would have never known him for boxing otherwise. And then he steps into the ring and he pivots and he's calling out people. He's kind of like taking the Conor McGregor approach
He doing a
of,
lot.
of
He doing a
marketing
lot.
himself. Yo, he really is, and no shade to any of them. Like I'm saying, it's obviously working, but more than that, is he's beating athletes. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And he's really pushing those boundaries, and I think it's dope. Because to step outside your comfort zone within itself, most people they're not willing to do so, just
Mhm.
because I feel like it pulls them in this place of discomfort. There, and
Mhm.
my coach tells me this every single time we're training, every night. He's
Mhm.
like, "There's growth in your discomfort." He's like, every time you get tired, he looks at me. He's like, "Hey, you uncomfortable?" I'm like, "Yeah, coach. I'm like dying over here." He's like, "Good. There's growth in your discomfort."
Mhm.
Knocks me in the face, like, you know what I mean? He knees me in the stomach. Yeah, yeah, there's growth in your discomfort. You know what I'm saying? It's just like there you have to go through that um, to kind of grow in whatever you're doing, and that means pivoting from YouTubing to boxing. Oh, that's a really big jump, man. That's a
Well,
great
let,
pivot.
let's look at a huge another pivot that just happened in the news, man. You know, I know you involved in the crypto space, and I know that that's something we talk about a lot. That for those of you that don't know, Coinbase, a large crypto exchange company, just IPO'd and went public. An early investor in Coinbase was Nas, bro, a rapper.
Oh, definitely.
His
Yeah,
his his
he's a
his
he's a
investment was worth like 100 mil. So,
that's
so how do
beautiful,
you how do
man.
you how do you make these moves? How do you what would I would consider? And again, I think Nas
Hmm.
has been in that space for a little bit now in terms of being an investor. He
Definitely.
also made a bunch of money off the Ring security system that you put on your door to see who's there and they can talk to you through your phone. But again, for what people know Nas as, and more generally, is being a rapper, a pretty profound one at that. I would argue. Um, and so, how do we look at these examples? How do we look at even maybe a smaller example of changing career paths or changing circles, um, what might be some things that we need to identify so we can take more or less that leap? What would you
That's
say?
a that's a good
Because
question, man.
I think
That's
you're a great example of it, dude. Is you jump ship
Mhm.
to another state pretty quickly, you know? And I was like,
Yeah,
man,
no, that
dude,
was
if that's what you needed, do it. But I want to
I
know what maybe some things people might come to get to that.
I feel like it almost may be like I, it's a crossroads, man. You know what
Mm,
I'm saying? Like everyone comes to these crossroads on a daily basis, right?
mm-hmm,
It's like, and when you really think about it, like I love the idea of like infinite world or like there being like infinite worlds out there in terms of like every possibility that there is in a decision, there's an alternate universe where that's happening. I love the theory of that. I really do,
mm,
right? And so when you're thinking backwards from the version of the person you want to become to the moment, what do those steps look like, right? And then just thinking about like the crossroads you're currently at and how that may like kind of kind of how that leans into it. You know what I mean? I think hmm, I think when people are thinking about it, it's the little things, you know what I'm saying? That I feel like that kind of lead toward that big crossroad of them just making a step outside of their comfort zone and never being able to look back. You know what I
Talk
mean?
talk a little bit more about the little things. What do you mean?
Okay, I'll give you a good example. I was literally just thinking about this the other day, bro. So, do you like there are a lot of personal development books, right? But
Mm-hmm.
as you start to read more personal development books, as you start to take notes of the personal development books you're reading and you're applying the information that you're taking in, you start to see changes in yourself, right? The little things. Then you start to meet people or you start to pick little things. So let's say you're at a coffee shop and someone you see someone reading the book.
Mm-hmm.
You introduce yourself, you're like, hey, that's a great book. What'd you take away from this? I took this away. And you start having conversations, but it all started because you picked up a book and you started like focusing on personal development, right? And then one thing leads to another. You start meeting minded individuals,
Mm-hmm.
start saying business ideas, or you just start talking about the growth side, and then before you know it, it's kind of like a snowball effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
It starts off little. And then those little compound effects kind of builds onto itself. And before you know it, you're at a major crossroads.
Okay,
You have
but
to
go ahead.
pivot. You have to like a good example, bro. You were offered a really good position somewhere else, and they were going to pay you X amount of dollars, but it just didn't align with your current like what you wanted to pursue. And at that point, you we were at a crossroads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so stepping outside of your comfort zone, or being at a place where you're just like, you know what, like this doesn't align with me, and you had to make that decision. And I feel like those decisions, those points, those crossroads,
Mm-hmm.
those are the points where people are either going to they're going to step outside their comfort zone or they're not. You know what I mean? And it's kind of a it's really interesting because we get so many of those options per day and even within a
Mm-hmm.
span of a year. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's the little things.
Yes. So you're saying little things, and the fact that you get plenty of those options a day, a year, and when I think about this, it makes you think of like critical mass, like critical mass at some point that either you're going to be so dissatisfied with
Mm-hmm.
where you're currently at that you, you're getting pushed out the comfort zone whether you like it or not, whether that be the values that you have that are like holding you accountable, or whether it be the lifestyle that you're living that basically says like, yo, you ain't doing it, you ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying?
What was that?
And so you ain't doing it. And so part of it, I think, when it comes down to that, is like that critical mass. Like, at what point is your cup gonna start overflowing with angst, with feeling as a sense of like, you know, you're falling behind personally. Don't compare yourself to nobody else, because I think that's really unhealthy. That's another topic we can dive into. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Facts.
yeah, when it comes to diving into the to something new when it comes to getting out of the comfort zone. I think that uh, that's a really good point about the little things and them kind of just compiling up to a critical mass point that I think begins for you to make those moves, um, because you can't
Yeah,
really
bro.
just deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, just like things don't fall out of the sky, right? It's just like what we talked about last time. Like opportunity is presenting itself at every corner,
Hmm.
but preparation will always lead to finding the right opportunity.
Hmm.
And that's when stepping out of a comfort zone becomes more, you know, not really a decision. It is what it is, right? So
Hmm.
I'm imagining if we're referencing back to the Jake Paul, and what the Paul brothers are doing, right? They maybe one of them got into like a fight, or maybe one of them watched a UFC fight or something like that. And before they knew it, they had already reached a certain level of success that's not easily attained within YouTube,
Yeah.
right? And at one point, they started boxing a little bit, and maybe somebody was just like, hey, like you have a platform, why not actually like do it like this? You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And then they took outside their comfort zone because it aligned with their goals, right?
It makes me think of something along the lines of your personal skill set. So you talk about when preparation, meets opportunity, there's success, right? Yes, I
Mm.
agree. I think part of it though, then there's another side step to that you need to dive into of like, yo, you need to be cool with identifying what's transferable skills. Like, for example, we're talking Jake Paul versus Ben Askren. Jake Paul knows how to
Hmm.
demand attention. What do you need
That's a
for
good point.
for boxing? You need to demand attention to sell those tickets.
Yo,
You know what I'm saying?
he pulled the Conor McGregor marketing strategy, and it worked flawlessly, bro. Because
Low key, I think he
people
pulled
like,
the Jake Paul just because they both in their loud, outgoing spaces, just talking that mess. But yeah, I agree. That whole getting in their face, hyping up the sales,
I mean,
demanding your attention,
yeah,
which he naturally I think comes to him because he's a YouTuber. So I think that's
yeah,
some
hmm
part of that stepping out of your comfort zone is that know the toolkit you already come with, right? Like,
that's a good one. That
you
is
know what I
good.
mean?
Yeah,
Where like if
knowing
you
who
go,
you are, knowing what's your table.
yeah, man, because yeah, it makes me think of like, all right, Jake Paul, he you know, he's jumping into boxing, but dude, I don't follow boxing, and I knew he was fighting some guy named Ben Askren,
Hmm.
and I knew they were you had to buy it a certain way to do this, and then also demanding the attention to the point where the fight itself, it had fights, but it wasn't just a regular boxing showcase. They had Doja Cat
Hmm.
performing, they had Justin Bieber perform, bro. They had Too Short, E40, Snoop Dogg, and Ice Cube dropping Mount Westmore, like his new album,
Oh, bro, another
which
really good
by the way is
example.
pretty dope.
Another great example. Ice Cube, bro. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's a perfect example. He pivoted from obviously making music, which he's still a phenomenal artist, into what, 3-on-3. He created his own basketball league. That within
Yeah.
itself, in its own right, bro. That's such an entrepreneurial thing to do, and I think it's amazing because he really did. He saw a need, and he stepped out of that comfort zone, right? And I don't know how connected he is with basketball. I mean, I always see him at games, but I
Mm.
think the beautiful thing is
I think he had plenty
being
of
able.
leverage by that time.
Oh no, plenty, bro. I mean, yeah, I would be surprised, but I think it's dope. You know what I'm saying? Because like when
Hmm.
you see individuals like that and they see a need and they step outside the comfort zone, because our comfort zone is like what we're doing all the time, right? So right now, it's like you can just imagine, right? If you're making a certain amount of money every single month or every week or every year, and you're aware if you just stay the course, things are cool, right?
Hmm.
And if you don't change anything, things are going to be all right. And stepping outside that comfort zone is by taking risk, right? And identifying that, hey, there is something else that you want to pursue, stepping outside of the norm of what you're doing to risk it, achieve more, or to just, get it. It could be, I just, um, I just want to be able to run through this, right? I just want to be able to run a half marathon. Stepping outside that comfort zone is like identifying what you
Mm-hmm.
want and then risking where you're currently at to get to said place,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's dope. I think that these individuals, whether they're the Paul brothers of the world or whether, like Ice-T or Nas or
Mm-hmm.
you see some of these other individuals, um, like they risked what they currently had. They stepped outside of that place
Mm-hmm.
to put themselves in a better one, right? And it doesn't always work out to the best. You know what I'm saying? Like people always like, well, I didn't want to bring it up, but Nate Robinson, right? It didn't work out the best for him. Like he tried out boxing. This was a professional
It
athlete,
did
and it
not
did
work
did it
for
pan
him.
out? Ben Askren, it did not. Ben Askren, did it work out for him? And by the way, I looked it up too because I felt really bad said
Mm-hmm.
that, and I was like, he won something? No, but he won Bellator, and a won welterweight championship, and I just didn't know he won anything in the UFC. But I hear what you're saying. But
Yeah.
these individuals all stepped out of what they were normally used to, and
Yeah.
which gives there so much more credit than somebody who's on the sidelines, like myself. I'm just watching, so I don't really have a say,
Mm-hmm.
but it's great to see them step outside of it, man. Like I think it's dope.
And this leads me to, so we touched on two things already. So we touched about comfort zone, getting back into, say off of a break, looking at the comfort zone as a relaxation, reset period for you to get back in the groove, and how sometimes that takes
Hmm.
a little bit of time. We then talked about how comfort zone you need to, like, what it might look like if you were to jump into an entirely different lane. We see that just in this last week with a YouTuber TKOing a former MMA fight or an MMA fighter, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
and then one of the things I think we should touch on is like, how do you know if you're in the comfort zone, or how do you know it's not just the pace, the track, the lane, the the path you're
Mm.
supposed to be on?
You know what? I came to this very dilemma as of recently.
Mm,
So you remember when I told you about the job I was offered at a tech company, and they were like, "Hey, we'll give you X position and we'll pay you X amount of dollars." And I was like,
mm-hmm,
"Yo, that it looks very appealing." And I had to re-examine where I currently was because it was one of those things where it was like, "Am I in my comfort zone? Am I not stepping out, or is this a part of the plan that I've already set in motion?" Right? I
mm,
think a really good example of this is Nipsey Hussle, right? When
okay.
he was offered his deal by MMG and they said, "Hey, yo, so you could basically be a part of this." And he said that, yo,
Mm,
Rick Ross offered him something amazing, right? And no, I've already made it to my team to do this with them.
mm,
And so I think having a plan in place allows you to kind of work within that plan. And if you're going to step outside that plan, then it really has to be like work that, like we talked about earlier, bro, risk. You really have to be willing to risk what you've already worked for
mm,
something else. And it could lead in one way or another, right? These athletes we're speaking about, they're a great example, right? They stepped out of that comfort zone and they either they learned something or they
mm-hmm,
won the scenario, right? Uh, and so being able to identify where you are, like being self-aware, is just as important because, right, I had to like internally find out for myself, did it make sense? And then coming to the realization, like, dude, no, this is you're in the thick of it. Right? So stepping outside of it, sure, you could pivot, but it's going to change the trajectory of what you're currently on that
mm,
you've worked so hard to get to, right? Whereas a come on, right? So the place where you find yourself just um I don't know, uh, like the place where you find yourself just not challenging or not challenged or just kind of like going through the motions
mm-hmm.
without a said plan or without feeling like you're making progress. Like that is the true essence of like a countdown, right?
So,
Um,
that's what I want to ask is how do you know that's, I mean, how do you not know that's just where you're supposed to be right at that time in your life? You know what I mean? Like, and I guess an example of this would be, um, people in school. This is a good
Okay.
example. So it I could see how if you're not going to a big school, or if you're not going to, you know, I guess an example would be community college, and that's where I work. But this is a great example for the students that are there. How do
Hmm.
you justify that you're where you're supposed to be when you know the other options for school around you, the 4 year, just going straight to work, it, people around you move in different ways, or maybe having more money than you, that you know that makes you feel a sense of pressure around you, that or sense of questioning, are you at the right stage, in the right place at the right time, or are you in the comfort zone, chilling, get like foot off the gas kind of mood.
Yeah, just kind of like, oh, parents are paying the way, or I'm just cruising through, just kind of setting in motion. I really think it has a lot to do with self-awareness and identifying where you want to go, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what's going to be like, that is the determining factor, at least in my mind and in my heart. I
Mm-hmm.
think it makes sense to know where you are and then where you want to go. And then from there, um, being able to discern, like, if that's where you want to go, putting a plan in place to get there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when I'm thinking of a person in a comfort zone, they're just kind of going through the motions, bro. Like, like they're just kind of doing the day to day to get
Yeah.
from A to B, because they either don't know any better, or that's just kind of like what they're focused on, right? What good we'll jump to the example you just gave, the kid in school. If if all they know, if all they've been presented is that this shiny diploma is going to get them everything they need, then they're just kind of going through the day to day, right? They're not
Mm-hmm.
thinking about like like some individuals, right? A really good another good example, Swaggy P, the YouTuber, but also the day trader, right? This is a kid who, that at school, for me, uses his school time to library, read professional development books, or sorry, personal development books, and then also learn day trading in that time, right? But for the kid whose goal is just to get the diploma, they think they're doing the right, and not wrong, but they think that the moves they're making are getting them closer. Whether we see them as right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But
Mm-hmm.
they are not. They think they're not in their comfort zone. They think that they are kind of just moving within the said plan that they have in motion, right? Whether or not we want to identify it as that is not.
Yeah.
But I think that I,
So
I don't know that.
no, and this is the question I'm just playing around in my head, as like I negotiated this a lot when I was in community college, and I just kind of saw my peers at 4 years, or I saw a lot of them going straight into like 40-hour work week jobs, 9 to 5, stuff like that, and I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, man, I gotta I gotta make a move. I gotta do something. I'm not doing enough, right? So I feel like there's plenty of times in my life where I felt peer pressure of just I need to do more, and that for a little bit of that
Mm-hmm.
time it was because other people were doing other stuff, or they were having
Mm-hmm.
other things or flexing other things. It eventually became to I need to do more for myself, but if I
Mm-hmm.
can put that on out there in the space for students or people or young people coming up, figuring out this angst, this pressure that you're feeling, that you're not doing enough, it's it's completely false. You know,
Definitely.
the lane the biggest thing I could offer right now is to explore, and then again, like we talked about last week, begin
Mm-hmm.
to make it applied exploration. Each time you're hacking away at more of a focus, that I believe, if you have that sensation like you're in the comfort zone, you're feeling angst that you're not doing enough, you know, the more you experience, like, and the more you read, or the more you pick up, and the more you engage with others
Mm-hmm.
on topics of just figuring yourself out,
Yo, but okay, so that's fair. I also feel like um I think it for me it starts with knowing who you are and just like what you talked about, who you are and what you bring to the table. And
Mm-hmm.
um then knowing like what you want, right? That
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness is such a big component. I had a friend recently, her and I were speaking about it, and she said, last year I was in this place of just feeling sorry for myself, just looking at myself, comparing myself to this, and that, or looking at my past.
Mm-hmm.
And then, coming to the realization like, yo, like my past is my past, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just need to focus on the present, being aware, and then moving forward. And then when she made that pivot, when she stepped outside of that comfort zone, it was more about, okay, like let let's just accept what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Let's identify what we want and where we are, and then kind of create the plan and move forward. Right? It doesn't need to be like like a step by step, 12-step plan of like, yo, I'm gonna get from here to that. But just something. Um, I
Sounds
think that
pretty relatable right
yeah,
now with what we're doing.
yeah, man, so very relatable.
Don't gotta have everything figured out, but we figuring it out.
Yeah, we're trying. Hey,
Uh,
man, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're
yeah,
what are we doing? We're building a plane as it flies. As we're in the sky, we're building it out. Right?
that sounds
That's the point.
terrifying.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing, brother. I mean, honestly, it's funny, but that's what we're doing. But that's what a lot of people
Yeah.
doing. To the single mother who is saving up money to buy a house,
Mm,
who is focused on taking care of her one kid or two kids or three kids, or to the kid who's working two jobs, currently taking the bus to both of them just to save up to get a car to get from A to B. Like,
mm,
we're all building that plan, and the size of it or like the destination of that plane is up to
mm,
each of us. But the beautiful thing is, like, we all have the ability and the opportunity to step outside of that comfort zone to make what we want happen. And it's, what do they say? It's not what happens to you, it's how you react. And I
mm,
always heard that and I hated it so much growing up because I got bullied a lot and I'm like, yo, I don't care. Like, I'm just tired of this situation. Right.
mm,
But how you react says more about your character, right? And where you're headed than what's happening to you,
mm.
right? Um, it,
How's your
I
mental?
think, yeah, yeah, man. Because that comfort zone, man, it's something that applies to all of us. You know what I mean? We all are in a little comfort zone, whether we want to believe it or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our comfort zone, your not comfort zone is the gym, right? Stepping outside that comfort zone could be something like ballet. It could be something as
Like
I
stretching
don't know,
more,
you know what I'm saying? Like yeah.
or running more, or things
Exactly.
I should be doing. Yeah, no, you're
Yeah.
you're, you're totally right.
Oh.
I think I need to remove this idea that the comfort zone for me is this complacency, and I don't think it has to be, but I think um if I lean more into it's a reset period or if it's a relaxation period, comfort food, things like that of having the mind association that it's like the comfort zone is more like that, then I think might be a little bit healthier.
Honestly, bro, I think it could be both. An argument could be made that it could be both
Mm,
because like it's just one of those things, right? With when we were in Tahoe, it was one of those situations where we were in a comfort zone because we were around the people we care about, and then
yeah.
we go back to our own little personal comfort zones. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just one of those things that shifts. It's fluid,
Yeah.
right? Now my comfort zone is like MMA every day. It's like that comfort zone, right? And stepping outside of that could be doing a podcast where I sound really weird and I also look even weirder on
We
camera.
gonna get your audio right. We gonna get your audio right.
Right?
Next
But
episode,
yes.
y'all, Devin will be on camera. He will have a new mic, and we'll get things a lot crisper. But
The comfort zone, man. It
the
is
comfort
a
zone, the comfort zone, man. So this is our episode on the comfort zone, and we're gonna dive deeper, as we always do every Thursday. Um, Dev, do you have any last remarks on this topic? Any last thoughts? When it comes to
Share
just
it with
that.
anyone who you guys feel like who's listening.
Mm,
Share who you feel like and maybe even have something to contribute, or
yeah.
maybe have something they could pull away from this. And they don't need to be someone who needs to be pulled out of anything or at all, but it's more about just being able to kind of learn from where we are, and we're all in
Mm,
different situations. And I think if they have any feedback, if the person listening check, come over to Clubhouse. We have these conversations at AP Talk. Uh, we get a idea of how other people step outside of
mm,
their comfort zones, and how we can all improve. Because the Humble Hustle podcast is more than just like two brothers talking, right? It's more than just individuals who have something they feel like they can contribute. It's more about us all building together, and
mm.
the best way we can do that is by lift up, right? Lift as we climb. So let's do that.
Yes, sir. And I think that's a good point to segue into the clubhouse, making sure you're prepped. Um, the question I have and that I want you all to prepare for when we talk tomorrow or on Thursday on it uh, is how do you get outside the comfort zone for you? So that's it for us. This is episode 10. That's a wrap. We appreciate you rocking with
Boom.
us, and we're going to keep it moving. Deuces.